Okay. Thank you, Nanette, and welcome everybody. We're going to have a go round and I will call on you. And I think our prompt is to say where you are physically and a word or two about your inner world as we gather together. And I'm going to start with Duncan Holloman.
Well, good afternoon, all. I'm in Gloucester, Massachusetts, where it's kind of rainy and drizzly. And I think my inner world is pretty rainy and drizzly as well. I'm pretty distraught about what's going on.
Well, you're not alone. Thanks, Duncan. Jennifer, are you finished your lunch yet?
Finished enough.
Okay.
So it's sunny and nice here in Toronto, Canada. And I just heard from a close friend whose partner in Washington, D.C. has a green card, but has now received direct information that she's being targeted by the FBI and others. And so this is very scary. And I've reached out to my PISLAP friends for looking for a Washington immigration lawyer. So I hope something works.
Welcome. Welcome. Sabina Spencer.
I'm here in Boulder, Colorado, and my inner world is quite centered at the moment because I had 10 hours of beautiful sleep.
Well, I'm jealous. I'm very jealous. Eileen, before you go off camera.
Wait, okay, I've done mute too. Okay, hi everybody. Good to be here. I'm Eileen Barker from San Rafael, California, which is a little bit north of San Francisco. And it's, kind of a bright but overcast day, but I guess that's my inner temperature too. I feel quite optimistic. I did go to the march on Saturday, I guess, and I feel like that was very uplifting and just encouraging in some way emotionally to be able to like finally say things and be amongst other people who are saying similar things. So I'm feeling very positive today. Thank you.
Sure. Good to have you. Stu Webb, where are you physically and what's your inner world like?
Hey, I'm here in Minneapolis. It's about 39 degrees. Sun is shining, and my inside is like my outside. I love the earth. I love Earth's law, but beyond law is loving the earth. Amen.
Amen. We have someone with the initials TZ.
Hey, Perry, you might recall my name's Tony Zell.
Oh,
TZ.
yes,
Yeah.
of course. Now I recognize you.
Of course. I am sitting here in my home in Newton, Massachusetts, and at one with the universe completely. Been making my chicken stock for my matzo ball soup for the Passover Seder. As some might know, it's a celebration that's been ongoing since at least the time the Bible was written, 4,000 years ago. It's very much a universally creative space for me. I feel like I'm channeling what the universe wants from me, and looking forward to hearing Herman expound on the works of Thomas Berry.
Great. Good to have you with us. Linda Wendling.
Well, hello, and I did tell you I would stay off camera since I'm fighting my headache in bed, but I am swinging between bleakness and light, and I'm always working for the light and the hope to win. So that is where my inner being is today.
Welcome. Andrew Niebler.
You're on mute, Andrew.
You're
Sorry.
on mute.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Novice mistake. Thanks for inviting or including me in the meeting. I'm happy to be here with all of you. I am participating from Bethesda, Maryland. Just a quickie for the person who was looking for an immigration attorney. I included my cell phone in the chat, so you can text me. I have a friend in the area who could probably be helpful. In my inner world, I coach a 9th grade girls soccer team that yesterday had an awesome game. One of the most impressive rec soccer games that I have had the privilege to coach. And I guess today I'm still enjoying the aftermath of that. I don't think these girls appreciate what they gave to me in that game. It was really special. But the effort they put in, how they competed and so forth. So today I'm actually thinking, how the younger generation can really give some comfort, and I think in more ways than one. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Good to have you here. Julie Oxenberg.
Oh, hi. I can do my video later. I don't know what the questions are, but I'm calling in from Gloucester, Massachusetts, and I am just really looking forward to this kind of inspiration. It was inspiring going to the rally in Boston on Saturday, and we had a really big celebration at my house for someone Saturday night. And so it's been good in that way, but still could use, it's always great to just be checking in with all of you doing wonderful work. So thank you so much.
Good to have you with us. Bruce Peterson.
Hi, I'm in Minneapolis, sharing a city with Stu Webb. Beautiful sunny day, but pretty cool. Like Eileen, I would say my inner space is better than it's been in a long time. We had a terrific rally on Saturday here, and for the first time, I felt the wave of positive energy pushing back and buoying us that I hadn't felt with all the negative stuff that we've heard.
Mhm.
So I'm feeling much better than I did on Friday. And I also want to apologize. I have some people here. I may need to help them in a bit, but I did want to get on for a while because I met Herman at the retreat and heard some of what he had to say then, and I want to hear more about it. So thank you for doing this, Herman.
Thank you, Bruce.
Good to have you. Good to have you. Deborah, have I called on you yet?
No, you haven't. I'm Deborah Hamilton. I'm from Morehead City, North Carolina by the coast, and I have to echo the feelings. It's good to see everyone. I haven't been here for a little while, been busy. But I also participated in Ruby Red, Morehead City, North Carolina, Carteret County. I think 72% of Carteret is Republican. So we had a huge turnout, about 1,000 people in Beaufort, North Carolina. And it really did the same thing that all of you have described. It gave me such a boost because it's a little difficult to remain positive in North Carolina when you're not in the triangle where it's purple. So it's the first time I've become really active, and I'm feeling the energy that's coming. So I'm so glad to be here. I can't wait to hear Herman talk about the environment, which may or may not be supported going forward, but let's hope that it will be. So thanks so much for having me.
Good to have you with us. James Brooks.
Hello, everyone. I'm in Saratoga, New York, where it's dank and overcast and a little chilly. Without gilding the lily too much, I am to Herman as Herman is to Thomas Berry. So if Herman's going to talk and I can possibly find a way to get there, I will get there.
Great.
And thank you for including me.
Di Shira.
Yes, I'm in Port Elliot, South Australia. It is 2:40 a.m. So I'm sitting up in bed, just happened to notice the invitation to this, and I've been active with the Centre for Ecozoic Studies and always appreciate the perspective that Herman and Thomas Berry bring. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to have you. Boy, dedication, 2:30 in the morning. Wow.
Either dedication or insomnia, one or the other.
I've had 7 hours good sleep because we've just changed from daylight savings. So
Okay.
Well, that's good.
No problem.
Someone called in from area code 908. You want to say where you are and what's on your mind spiritually? Hello, 908. Okay, 908.
That's not Neil, is it? That's not Neil. I don't think that's Neil.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Who it is. I think I've called on everyone.
I think it's the FBI.
How about you,
Anybody,
Perry? How about you, Perry?
anybody I didn't call on?
I guess Nanette.
Well, I'll give you the floor in a minute. I'm in Washington, D.C., and it is cold and rainy, so I'm going back to Miami as soon as this call is over. So I went to the Washington Monument on Saturday, and there were throngs of people. The signs were great. I felt in solidarity. And that was a great feeling. I'm a little anxious now. I have a big court hearing tomorrow morning in front of the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit on an important case. And I'm far more anxious than the 15 minutes I've been given for the oral argument. But I guess that's the way it cooks. I'm turning it over now to Nanette, who will tell us her physical presence and how you're feeling, and introduce our speaker.
Break a leg, Perry, break a leg.
Thank you.
Thanks, Perry. Thanks for leading that. And welcome again, everyone. I'm Nanette Shore. I live in New York City. It's a very gray, rainy day, chilly, rainy day here. But I also, like so many who have spoken, am feeling much more heartened. I was part of the march this weekend in New York City, and it felt like folks coming out of isolation and just a heartening, warm feeling of solidarity and something building. So I was really happy to be there and in better spirits, as many are because of that. So now I want to turn it over to Herman. I met Herman back in November at a PISLAP gathering we had in North Carolina. And was really taken with his vision and the work that he is doing around Earth law and building on Thomas Berry's philosophy and spirituality, and looking forward very much to hearing what he has to say. So Herman's going to speak to us, and then we'll have a chance to have dialogue. So over to you, Herman.
Okay. Well, I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, so I join Linda and was it Deborah? No, it's Julie that's from North Carolina. And it was a very light rain today. We had 89 degrees, I think, this weekend, and I guess it's supposed to freeze tomorrow night. So getting ready for a re-dip into some cooler weather. Yeah, I won't go into, I mean, where I am is a bit on edge about, what's going on and just the urgency of acting and the things that I feel called to do. Okay, so let me get started. I do have a PowerPoint, and I'll try to keep this to about 20 minutes. Okay, we're going to share. And I did get my version up in front of me. Okay. Okay, so this is a Society for Earth Law because it doesn't yet exist. It will be an affiliate of the Earth Law Center. And so when someone asks for the website, we don't have a website for the Society for Earth Law at present, but we will. And but as I say, we'll be affiliated with the Earth Law Center. So that will give you some background on the work that we're doing. So what is Earth Law? Well, it's not environmental law. It's also not environmental law, but environmental law came into being when, I mean, it's always been some kind of environmental regulation, but under that name, it came into being in the middle of the 20th century, and it was a result of industrial accidents, and there was a felt need to take in to counter the unintended side effects of industrial development. So it wasn't really to question our mode of development, it was to take care of what we considered to be unintended side effects. So we have done things like clean up the air, at least in the United States, not everywhere, obviously. But there have been significant achievements through environmental law. And yet it's limited in its scope in that it's not fundamentally questioning our way of living or our mode of development. It's trying to take care of what we don't like about it. Okay, it's not law. By that, I mean it's more than law. It's more than what you normally think of as the legal system of judges and lawyers and cases and statutes. It is the ordering principles of society, and I will talk about that. You'll see in the slide it says ordering principles of the cosmos and Earth as we come to know them through various means to which we must conform. Now, I don't think I have it on another slide, so how do you get to know that? Well, you get to know it through a walk in the woods, get to know it through books and other methods, but I'll speak a bit more about that. Okay, so how is it related to PISLAP? Those people I've invited may not know this is the project for the integration of spirituality, law, and politics. So on the website, it says that it's a network of lawyers, law professors, law students, and legal workers and others, and the Earth Law Society will also be that, who are seeking to develop a new spiritually informed approach to law and social change. So I'm going to say a bit about a different dimension or maybe a dimension of spirituality that hasn't been as consciously appropriated by PISLAP. And it's founded on the belief that all human beings yearn for a world of love and real human connection where we can live meaningful lives and fully recognize each other's humanity. We believe there exists a universal spiritual bond that transcends any religious or social differences. And so I'll give a, not that it doesn't include a larger community of life, but I will expand that context. So the society and the cosmology of law. Now, Sabina Spencer is on this call today. I'm delighted. It's the first time I've met her, but there's a book by Brian Swilm called Cosmogenesis, and she was one of our authors in that book, writing about this new understanding of the universe as evolutionary. So I'm especially glad to have her here. So what do we mean by cosmology of law? And this goes to that concept of spirituality that I was mentioning earlier. So Thomas Berry wrote a paper called The Spirituality of Earth, which literally, I mean, honestly, changed my life in like 3 minutes. It's never been the same since I read this paragraph. The subject we are concerned with is the spirituality of Earth. By this, I do not mean a spirituality directed toward an appreciation of Earth, like you're driving down the road and there's a little scenic site. You pull over and you appreciate the beauty of the Earth. That's not what he's talking about fundamentally. I speak of the Earth as subject, not as something you look out and see. As subject, not as object. I am concerned with the maternal principle out of which we were born. And humans were born, and whence they derive all that they are and all that they have. Humans in their totality are born of Earth. We are Earthlings. Earth is our origin, our nourishment, our support, our guide. Our spirituality itself is Earth-derived. If there is no spirituality in Earth, then there is no spirituality in us. Humans are a dimension of Earth. These two are totally implicated in each other. Now, the reason this changed my life was I had both a divinity degree and a law degree, and in divinity school I studied the philosophy of Alfred North Whitehead, and it's a philosophy of organism and connection and interdependence and panpsychism, but I didn't have a way of applying it. And I mean, I didn't really apply it to environmentalism because I was involved so much in social issues at the time I was reading this, which was in the early 1980s. But as I've gone on, I appreciate this more in the evolutionary context, which I'll speak about more about in a minute. But if you think about it, what are we? We're just a bunch of minerals and rocks and chemical processes and so forth. And we are derived. I mean, we know from our understanding of science now that we are derived. I mean, when they talk about Adam coming from the earth, Adam from Adamah, which is earth, that's what we are. We are Earth. It is our nourishment, our guide. It's what we are. So if there's no spirituality in that mud, there's no spirituality in us. So we're derived from the earth, and the earth is derived from the universe. So Thomas Berry and Brian Swelm wrote, the most significant change in the 20th century, it seems, is our passage from a sense of cosmos to a sense of cosmogenesis. Cosmogenesis means a cosmos that's constantly creating itself. It doesn't just exist. We have moved from that dominant spatial mode of consciousness where time is experienced in ever-renewing seasonal cycles, which are still important. We love the spring and the fall and the summer and the winter, to a dominant time developmental mode of consciousness. Even though it's spring and fall and summer, it's always changing. There's never the same spring, never the same summer, never the same fall. It's constantly emerging. Where time is experienced as an evolutionary sequence of irreversible transformations. Well, irreversible transformations are good when they're good, and they're not so good when they're not. And he also says that Earth is a one-time endowment, and it's subject to irretrievable loss. In other words, it's a irreversible transformation. So Teilhard de Chardin talks about evolution as the general condition to which all other theories, all other hypotheses, all systems must bow, in which they must satisfy henceforward if they are to be thinkable and true. Evolution is a light illuminating all facts, a curve that all lines must follow. And I'll just put a slight gloss on that. In science, evolution is treated like most things. It's caused by random mutation and cause and effect relationships. But it's actually not the way that Teilhard meant it. It meant that we were being pulled in a certain way. that we were being guided, that there was something always out in front of us pulling us forward. So it's in that sense he speaks of evolution. In the modern era, the cosmos has been deprived of meaning and value. I found this book by Rami Brog, The Wisdom of the World, the Human Experience of the Universe in Western Thought, and how that changed. In the Greek times, there was a sense of an ordered cosmos. In the Hebrew tradition, there was the idea of a beneficent creator who created things. So both of them gave meaning to the order of the universe. But in the modern period, the image of the world that emerged from physics after Copernicus, Galileo, and Newton is of a confluence of blind forces where there is no place for consideration of the good. In other words, it's not good, it's just these blind forces. The world was no longer a whole, but a result of disparate forces. Cosmology gave way to cosmography. The stars, for example, no longer reflected the order of heaven, an ethical model to which one was to adapt itself, but lacked any significance until some new theory might account for the facticity of their existence. So we go out and look at the stars and we get our little stargazer and we name the galaxy and so forth, and then we find out about what scientifically that means, but not just the presence of the cosmos, the order that's there, that's given, that's typically lost. Or again, it's reduced to this kind of objective kind of wonder about the world, but not a sense of has something to say about the order of existence. In the words of Nietzsche concerning the new astronomy, since the time of Copernicus, humans distanced themselves from the center and moved toward, well, whatever. Spiritually lost its roots in the order of the cosmos and became predominantly interhuman or human with a transcendent being. So Earth law replaces law in cosmology. And it's done that through science, even though we can talk about science having this kind of mechanical view of the universe. Physical cosmology has taught us in the 20th century that the universe has a story. It began and it's been emerging and evolving. And ecology has taught us about how we're not separate, how everything is connected. And Earth system science, ecology is focused on local ecosystems, but Earth system science is these giant systems that keep Earth alive. I read that, until say the 1950s, we thought of weather as a local event. I'm not sure. I think maybe they knew something about it before, but we certainly know now that weather is a confluence of much larger forces. So we have Earth system science. In the 20th century, also developed this idea of big history, which included both humans and the Earth. And it brought into being environmental law, what I was describing earlier, this idea that, I'll get to that in a second, and the Anthropocene, the idea of human dominance. In the 21st century, in terms of law, we have Thomas Berry and indigenous traditions teaching us not just about the scientific facts of the big story, but a new story about the evolutionary universe and its meaning, bringing meaning back into this order, about a sentient Earth community, not dead matter in motion, about a sense of place from both Berry and the indigenous traditions. Once again, we belong, not just nomadic modern people, bioregionalism, a rediscovery of the commons, not just a little pasture that is tragic, but the commons of the air, the currents in the ocean, the sinks, and a reverence for life in a different way. Reverence for life, not just a transcendent reverence, but a reverence for the presence of life. And we move from an ontology of separation to one of connection and entanglement and mutuality. Now, again, these are probably not, I mean, they could be more nuanced, but in environmentalism, we're humans and we have an environment, so we have to take care of it. And for our sake, or we have an environment and we have to be the stewards over it. But we're here, the environment's over there. So what all this takes us, and it's something that you have to appropriate for yourself. I mean, it's an unfolding to get this idea that we're connected, we're entangled. This is mutual. An ontology of connection, entanglement, and mutuality. And these legal theories came into being and a movement emerged. And I'm talking about in the 21st century. Now, these had antecedents, but they began to flower just since 2000. The rights of nature movement. The idea that it's not just humans that have rights, but nature has rights itself. And this has been expressed in hundreds of statutes and constitutions around the world, cases, not that many constitutions. The rights of future generations. And I think that these are the two big ethical challenges that have not been prominent before. I mean, we didn't think we had to take care of nature. Nature took care of itself. And we didn't think we had to to give take into consideration future generations. Well, for one thing, progress would just take care of that. But now these are real things. These are real things. Ecocide, the idea that we might be destroying large parts of our environment. I mean, there I go, environment. It's hard to get away from these words. The public trust doctrine, the idea that a fundamental obligation of governments is to take care of, and I'm going to use the word resource, that's a problematic word, the resource base on which the society depends. Indigenous legalities is a rediscovery, things like quantum mechanics and all these connections tie back to similar intuitions in indigenous traditions, and we're able to learn through those traditions and the ways that they related, very important to this work. And human environmental rights, not just a right to free speech, right to work, right to health, so forth, but a right to a clean and healthy environment. So this movement has come into being under several names. Wild Law actually was the first, because there was a classic book by Cormac Cullen, classic meaning, published, I think, in 2002 originally, on wild law. And it was the idea that there was Earth law and there was human laws, and we had to make them work together. Ecological law is another term that's used. Many people refer to the movement as the rights of nature movement. The group that I'm involved with uses the term Earth law to recognize all these different theories. And together, there is definitely an Earth law movement at work, and you can see the eco-jurisprudence monitor. I'll share this with you, and you can go to that website to see all the places in the world where this is active. So the Society for Earth Law, which is being organized, we have 42 people involved in organizing this, intends to enhance the Earth. Excuse me, my phone is responding to spam call. The Society for Earth Law. That woman never hears me. She does it like 4 or 5 times a day, and she never hears me. So at any rate, so the Society for Earth Law intends to enhance the Earth Law movement through having a broad-based membership society. So there are people around the world that that are involved in this movement, but there's not a broad-based membership society where you can get thousands of lawyers engaged in this work and thousands of non-lawyers as well. Earth Law chapters at universities and high schools as well. A think tank for thought, media, and education, and fostering and supporting Earth Law practice, which is, and its simplest terms, how do you make a living doing this? But it means how do we, and you'll see in a moment, it's a different conception of law, and so I'll come back to it. So what is Earth Law? Well, Tony Zell was sitting in this room, and this was, if Tony doesn't ever do anything else in his life, he did this. It's a tremendous definition. Earth Law is an emerging body of law for protecting, restoring, and stabilizing the functional interdependency of Earth's life and life support systems at the local, bioregional, national, and global levels. It may be expressed in constitutional, statutory, common law, that's case law. Everybody knows that, that's law, but this is the important part, customary law, and we'll go further into that. That's non-written law, as well as in treaties and other agreements, both public and private. And the purposes of Earth Law are to provide the legal framework needed so that humans live within planetary boundaries. It's possible to go outside them, we know that now. Prospectively care for ecosystems, not just environmental remediation. Preserve biodiversity. Restore damaged ecosystems and loss of biodiversity. So the restoration or regeneration is very important in Earth Law. Protect human, environmental, and biocultural. That's in brackets because it wasn't in the original text, but it's going to be in the next version. So biocultural rights is the rights of communities to live together, especially indigenous communities, and to carry on their traditions. And justly share the burdens of mitigating and adapting to climate change and other environmental stresses. And this will become increasingly important. And you're now getting a lesson in how not to do it from a federal standpoint. Okay. So it's about restoring ordered lives in an age of collapse. Now, nobody can tell you for sure we're in an age of collapse. A lot of people will tell you it's not. A lot of people just assume it's not. But we are, it's my belief, backed up by a lot, that the way we're living just will not work, and that we're going to encounter increasing problems. Some will be manifest as human to human in wars. But behind that, a lot of it is behind it, is that we just have a system that won't work on this earth. It's not the end of the world, not yet, but it is the end of the world as we have known it. If humans are to survive and Earth is to thrive, we need new ordering principles of societies. Now here we get an expanded definition of law. These ordering principles include laws, procedures, customs, ethics, rituals, practices, symbols, stories, understandings, and ways of understanding. Because if you just apply our current way of thinking about things, you can only understand so much. But if you expand your ways of understanding, then you can learn a lot more. So these are collectively what we refer to as law. Now, many of you, or some of you, are Jewish, and you know the respect that's always been given to the law, and they dealt with all these things in the Hebrew scriptures. And we're going to have to do it again in our present context. What are the ways, the ordering principles that we need to live by? So it behooves us to align human law with the complex ordering principles of Earth and the universe. Subjectivity, there's subjectivity throughout the universe. Biology, geology, Earth system science, and cosmology. We'll call that collectively ecology. I think I left out ecology, but that would be to repeat it. Any rate, it's the ecology, and as we're using it in our call for the Earth Law Society, the Society for Earth Law, involves all these things. And the premise of the society is that ecology can serve as the basis of civilizational transformation. An ecosystem knows how to do what it does. It's interconnected. Everybody plays a part. So applying the principles of ecology and the ordering principles of the cosmos can be a basis for reforming civilization. Okay, I'll skip through these others pretty quickly. How will this society bring about change? It'll help in moving from the present individualistic consumptive social contract to an ecological social contract based on three principles: relationality, reciprocity, and responsibility. Now, I don't know if you received the call, but I'll send it out. It has these discussed, and I won't go into it here, but that's different than, say, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's a different set of principles appropriate to an ecological age. It doesn't wipe away those old, but these are the principles for an ecological age. So we call them the three R's. We didn't really start with the three R's and try to come up with the three words. We came up with the three words under the three R's. So the instruments of change are the chapters, and it's amazing the enthusiasm that young people have for this work. If you're an environmentalist, a lot of times you go to meetings, everybody's over 50. Of course, now over 60 or something, but it's unbelievable how students react to this idea of Earth law. They don't know how to bring about meaningful change. They're the next generation of Earth lawyers, and we'll be working with these chapters to do it. We have one now at New York University and one in Nigeria, and we haven't really even started because we haven't launched yet, but we expect to have a lot. A think tank, which is just to, there's a lot of thinking in this area. It was a time you wouldn't find articles on rights of nature. Now you can find hundreds, but there's no center that's specifically working around these ideas. Earth law practice will involve Earth Up, which means like bioregionalism or eco-villages, community ownership, so forth. And then top down, we want to work with people in existing law practice and how to change their law practices. And then there's the members. Now, we thought about the idea of the Federalist Society. They have 90,000 members. It'll be a long time before we have 90,000 members, but you know the effect they've had. And so maybe we'll have an effect along that line. And I'll come back, my final slide is how does it relate to PISLAP and vice versa. So effects on PISLAP, these ideas can expand the meaning of spirituality to earth-based spirituality. And it can expand the meaning of social change to include earth community in PISLAP. Now, how can PISLAP help this? Well, we aren't yet dealing with things that you are, like this attention to talking with lawyers about what's going on inside themselves and the interpersonal dimension of law and their own spiritual states. So you are doing that, and we can learn from that or maybe somehow work together on that. And then the idea of integrative lawyering, which extends beyond our primary focus is on ecology, to extend relational, which Kilm talks about relational practices of collaborative law and restorative justice to the healing focus on therapeutic jurisprudence. That's good. To the creativity of values-based contracts. And with that, I end my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Herman. A lot of food for thought in there, and also collaboration. So yes, so the floor is open for anyone to share comments, reactions. Jenny.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. We have lots of interests in common. I started the paper I'm working on now and a previous one with a quote from Thomas Berry. But the puzzle that I'm left with is that I think there's a lot of consensus around the scientific recognition of interconnection and what we can learn from that. But then you add, importantly, the language of meaning and of spirit and spirituality. And we know that there is not a consensus around this. So there are people who work actively and thoughtfully around thinking about the earth and its agency in new ways, but the language of spirituality is alien to them. And I really am puzzled myself about how to move forward in the most all-inclusive way that highlights what we can all see, which is not everybody, but everybody in this sphere can see interconnection. And what happens when we insist in our own framing? Well, if you're not getting that this has a meaning, and a meaning that we code as spiritual, then you don't see it the way we do. So that's
yeah. Well, we're in a sense spiritually homeless. I mean, it's everyone has a spirituality, whether they use that language or not, but how to tie it to traditions is a puzzle. I mean, I was just reading an op-ed today about it was kind of sarcastic about how Richard Dawkins had talked about the cultural importance of Christianity, and the author was well, presumably conservative theologian, saying, aha, they finally caught it, that our religions are relevant. But yes and no. I mean, they are relevant. They do sustain us, but they also have to be brought into this. So it's on both sides that you have the secular science has to be brought into a spiritual context, and religions also have to be brought into this other. And then there has to be symbols that do this. And since you know Thomas Berry, he talks about a meta-religious mode, and that is that everyone has a sense of the earth as sacred. And so we can use the symbols of nature that that can bring us across religions, across the secular divide, to a kind of reverence for life. That won't happen tomorrow, but it's what we have to do. But good for you. I'd like to read your article.
I'll send it to you.
Love is a feeling, not a thought. Our thinking takes us away from the love that we are. Too much thinking. And that is part of what lawyers have done.
Yeah.
Attempt to support thinking, and it's just simple love. Just expressing the love that you are to other people is the key. Yet we move away. Talk. I put a Rumi poem on the chat. It's wonderful.
Yeah, we're still, before we started, talk about why not earth love rather than earth law. Yeah, well, there's a writer, Andreas Weber, who talks about the Western epistemic empire. And it's the way we limit our thinking to this kind of abstract, argumentative, logical way of thinking. And then I was listening to, oh gosh, his name's going to escape me right now, but talking about the divided brain, and it talks about the left and right brain. I'm sure you've all heard of that.
Ian Gilchrist.
Yeah, Ian Gilchrist. And he makes the argument that the people with the highest IQ are the ones that are operating out of their right brain, that are seeing these connections. Because this kind of abstract way of thinking doesn't lead to knowledge or wisdom. And it's always right. You know, that a person who has it all logically figured out, try to convince them otherwise. They have it, that leads to this, not relationality, but separateness. So we are going to think, we are thinking beings, but we can sure shift around how we think and how we integrate that with a larger sense of feeling and connection. Bruce?
Thanks a lot for this, Herman. There's a lot there. I just want to pick out a little bit about kind of the practical issue here. You said you had a category of top down and sort of changing legal practices. You said the earth law is not law, but we do have a set of tools that have, if they're implemented and not degraded like they are now, have had some success. Limits on air and water pollution and solid hazardous waste, some protection of endangered species, conservation, setting aside lands. Is that, do you want to improve on that? Do you want to replace that? Do you want to, what is your, I forget what you said about you want to have a top-down approach, but you want to transform the current legal tools somehow.
Well, that's a really big question. I'll try to answer it simply, but so, you know, I mean, I started practicing law in 1979, but contracts didn't used to be like they are now, like hundreds of pages. You know, there was an ethos that governed life, and life is too complex, and we can't. I mean, one of the problems with if taken literally, the rights of nature is that you can't give 12 million or however number you think there are different species their own specific legal rights. And we have this idea that it's okay as long as it's not against the law. And so we have this huge problem in the legal system is that bad cases make bad law. So somebody like wears their shoes on the airplane and only one person, and then suddenly everybody since that time has to take off their shoes. So there has to be, we can't deal with this just by changing law and regulation. Law and regulation will change, but also the procedures of how we make decisions. Because in courts, as you know, if somebody has a lot of money, they can often win, even though they're not in the right. But it has to do with a new sense of order for a whole society, not the idea that we can just practice law or live life to the limits of the law. Okay, Duncan.
Yeah, like Jenny, there are many ways in which I feel a kinship with you and how you see the world, and would wish to see it happen. It's a little more difficult to think about how we get there from here. I wanted just to respond to something that Jenny said and then ask you a question, because I worry that the notion of meaning takes us actually away from this experiential dimension of spirituality, that there's something about how we experience as whole beings, right and left hemisphere and all that. and a more maybe mystical way of seeing the world, which is a different way of understanding, to use your language. It's a different epistemology. The question I wanted to ask you has to do with the shift from rights to duties or rights to responsibilities. I think the notion of rights of nature gets bogged down because you start thinking of only persons have rights. So then you have to make a river a person, which I think is kind of a distortion of where you want to go. But shifting to a philosophy of responsibility, of care, is, I think, a shift away from the notion of rights. And I wondered if you could speak a bit more about that.
Yeah, I'd like to speak briefly to your thing about meaning. Well, I mean, the mystical experience is meaning. We give words to our mystical experience. So in that sense, it does involve words, but certainly what I mean is that when you
not immediately, it's translated into words. The experience itself is not language, but go ahead.
No, I completely understand that, but language can cut off the mystical experience.
Right.
And so when I say meaning, yes, it's derived from that experience. And that would also change the way we express it in rituals and rites and symbols and words and so forth. But absolutely, it's an experience. Yeah. And as far as this other question that you ask about rights, that you got it. I mean, you gave the lecture right there. It's ethics of care. Yeah, that's the key. Is that I mean, I have to be careful because in this movement, this is the most successful way of going at it. And it's not surprising because in the modern period, if you don't give something rights, it doesn't exist. But there's limits to it. And so we have to kind of balance between try things that can speak in the current framework, but also move it toward. I think personally it is moving toward, but I could give you another short little thing about, well, I might as well. It doesn't take too long. So, I mean, first of all, that is what we're talking about, is moving from rights to responsibilities. It doesn't mean wiping out rights, and it also, there is something a bit artificial may not be the right word, but it's difficult to like apply the human person to every aspect of nature. But what rights of nature does is it gives recognition to things that would not otherwise be recognized. So if somebody says this river has rights, suddenly people are thinking about the river in a different way. It also says what's right about nature. You know, rivers don't flow. It's not going to fulfill the role of the river. So it talks about what's right about nature, and it talks about how that needs to be integrated into our legal system. So it certainly plays an important role at this stage. Is that good, Duncan? I mean, feel okay about that?
Sure.
I mean, I don't know.
I agree with you. We got to move from where we are to where we want to get, and that's where we are, and we know where we're trying to get, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's true in human affairs too. It's true in human affairs too, right? Is that we have all these battles over, it's my right to do this. It's my right to do this. I can do this. It's my right, you know.
That is reminding us that Eileen had her hand up, so I want to be respectful.
Thank you. Well, appreciating this talk very much, Herman, and the sensitivities you're bringing to it. And I also wanted to kind of harken back to what Ginny said, because spirituality and integrating it with law is very near and dear to my heart. And I just wanted to share my own experience with that. I think why it's so important to be secular is that religion just clouds things and has been so divisive for people. We have to take that out of the equation or we, in some cases, but then again, there, we can, when I talk about spirituality, I think it's really important to not make it one thing and to leave space for everybody to have their own definition of that and their own experience of that, because that's the truth. We all
Yeah.
do have our experience. And I think what's so profound about spirituality is that we have this direct connection, a direct link, to source, to spirit. And so I think, we don't need, those who experience that realize you don't need the middleman. But anyway, so I just think, for me, lawyers, we have one of the most powerful tools at our disposal in the society, the law. And then if we can also engage our own spirituality, whatever that means for you, and I love PISLAP because this is a place where we've talked about that in the past and are hoping to more in the future. How do we really can find that spiritual connection that we have and bridge that into the law? Because as you're talking about rights, what I'm thinking about is that one of the flaws, if you will, in the legal system and the whole history up till now is the the pretense that we can control nature and the natural world by saying, well, if we don't, we give the rights, and if we don't, then it doesn't exist. We're seeing that right now with gender. No, you don't exist. There's only so, but it's true in nature too. But that's not the truth. These things, nature exists, therefore, and the reason those documents are 100 pages instead of 5 is because we're trying to control life through our words, and you can't control life no matter how many words you use. Give it your best shot, and then you end up with these enormous documents. Put it in plain English, and so we don't like that. We don't like we don't like admitting that we're not in control. And the last thing I want to say is, that you mentioned in some century the dominance of law and the dominance of man. That was wrong. And we have to realize that we are not dominant. We don't rule over the sun, the planet, the plants, the animals. We've tried our best, but it'll work much better if we see that we are stewards.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Eileen. I'm with you on that. Stewards, our cheering squad here. Sabina.
Well, thank you, Herman. It was lovely to listen to you, and thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here, and I think the work that you're doing is really important. Mine is a really practical question, kind of building on the idea of interdependence and interconnectedness. Where else in the world do we have a similar kind of, do I want to say movement or projects, and how can we create perhaps a critical mass of people like yourselves who are really focusing on that? So Herman, I don't know if you can say where else the connections lie beyond the US. And maybe Australia has some, because that's why someone's getting up at 3 a.m. to listen to you. So anything you can give me.
Yeah, well, Sabina, I'm a little surprised because we know that there's so many people around the world that are feeling this and thinking it and expressing it through regenerative economics and restoration and ecology and care. If that didn't exist, there wouldn't be any hope for the kind of work that we're doing. So what we're doing is taking on an aspect which is trying to not just use law as a tool, like you've got a problem, so you hire a lawyer to bring a suit for you, but change the basic principles on which law is based. Because right now we have a binary system and an adversarial system. And so, but we couldn't. And then the other thing is that we're going to be forced to change one way or the other. We're either going to go into barbarism or we're going to go into a relational worldview. And you mentioned Thomas Berry. He had a brother named John Berry, and he would say the human was not meant to fail. I mean, like we came into being 14 billion years after the universe, and we were not meant to fail. So I just believe that I mean, what else? You just go with the idea that it's not predetermined, but that these forces are at work that will bring this into being. We don't know when or how soon. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
My question is more, are there collections of lawyers in other parts of the world?
Lawyers.
Yes.
Well, that's part of what I'm saying is we don't have any broad-based membership in this work. I mean, we have a lot of organizations that are local, but we don't have that, and we don't want it just for ourselves. We want it for all these other movements as well. So that's what we're trying to do. I mean, there are other legal groups that are doing work that you would be identifying with, but we hope that we can be a force. Yeah.
I'm sure you already are. Thank you, Herman.
Okay, well, thank you.
I love you all. Pass it on.
Did anyone else have a question or a comment before we wrap up? All right.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Herman.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much, Herman. And, you know, I think some of the questions that have been brought up about, you know, the language of rights and the use and the integration of spirituality into the language about shifting the culture are issues that PISLAP has also grappled with. And it was really good to hear this conversation. And I think, you know, what you're trying to build feels very kindred in spirit to what we're trying to create. So hopefully we will continue to talk with each other and support each other as we can. And if anyone from the Earth Law group would like to join some of our calls in the future, please feel free. But much appreciation to you, Herman, for what you're doing, and look forward to continued dialogue.
Thank you, Nanette.
Thank you so
Wow.
much.
Thanks, everyone. And we'll be in touch about our next call. We haven't, we're actually working on trying to find a date for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, goodbye, everyone.